Introduction to the Practice Guide AistearSíolta. Roscommon County Childcare Committee, in collaboration with Longford County Childcare Committee, are delighted to bring you this podcast where we will give an overview of the AistearSíolta Practice Guide and how early childhood care and educational leaders can use Aistear and Síolta together to improve their curriculum in their early settings.
So hello to everybody. As Irina said, my name is Sandra O'Neill. I'm a project worker with the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, and in particular I'm working on the AistearSíolta Practice Guide, the first phase of which is now live on the website. So my job today, I suppose my job today here is to give you a very brief overview into the AistearSíolta Practice Guide, and hopefully you can use that information to frame the work that you do for the rest of the day. So just a quick message about any of the photos and the videos that I use in this presentation, and also the photos and the videos that you'll find on the practice guide. Every single one of them is from a early years setting in Ireland. So it just goes to show the wonderful work that's actually going on in Ireland at the moment. And all the videos and the photos that I use today are also available on the AistearSíolta Practice Guide website. So where did the practice guide come from? Many of you may remember back in 2013, RTE broadcast a primetime programme, A Breach of Trust, and it sort of galvanised the sector. It led to a interdepartmental commitment to improve the quality of early years across the country. The minister at that time, Frances Fitzgerald, she was the Minister for Children, came up with an 8-point action plan, so 8 ideas and things that she wanted to do in order to improve practice. And they were influenced heavily by a number of things. Aistear in Action, which was a project that the National Council for Curriculum Assessment and Early Childhood Ireland facilitated, and the evaluation of the Síolta Quality Assurance process that was done in early 2013 as well. A lot of work across the sector that have been done by the likes of the City and County Childcare Committees and the national voluntary organisations and people in training and mentoring and support roles. And finally, also in 2013, there was a joint inspection initiative between the Department of Education and Science and the HSC, TUSLA, which is now called, and they did a joint inspection in early years settings in early starts in particular. So all of this led to the Department of Education contacting the NCCA back in 2013 and asking them to take the lead in developing a practice guide. This practice guide would support practitioners to use Aistear and Síolta together to improve their curriculum. In particular, they asked for 3 things. They wanted the practice guide to identify entry points into Aistear, so to tell practitioners where to start when using Aistear, because it's quite a broad framework, and also to identify a set of curriculum development priorities. So when you're starting, what do you do first? Where do you start? Secondly, they wanted to identify or to create a simpler self-evaluation tool, so to build on the self-evaluation tool that was used in the Síolta Quality Assurance process. That's quite a big tool. Aistear was also developed in 2009, it was released in 2009, so they wanted this tool to include an awful lot of information in Aistear which may not have been included in detail in Síolta. And thirdly, and this was the most important thing, although they wanted the practice guide to draw on content from both Síolta and Aistear, they didn't want it to replace either of those frameworks. So the frameworks remain as they are. The practice guide does not replace or supplant either of the frameworks. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to play you a short clip from the practice guide website, and it introduces the content and the structure of the practice guide. So just a short little clip, it's a nice introduction to it.
Welcome to the AistearSíolta Practice Guide. This guide helps practitioners to use the 2 early childhood frameworks, Síolta and Aistear, together to develop, reflect on, and extend their curriculum to support all children's learning and development. In particular, the guide focuses on building a curriculum based on children's interests, questions, and experiences. This is called an emergent and inquiry-based curriculum. So, who can use the practice guide? The guide is mainly for practitioners working in part and full-time daycare settings and in playgroups, preschools, and Niamey. You can use it by yourself, with your team, or perhaps with practitioners from other settings, or with a mentor or support person. The guide can also be used by childminders, teachers in early start units, and people working in support, or evaluation roles, including mentors, as well as early childhood tutors, lecturers, and students. What are SÍolta and AistearSíolta? SÍolta is the National Quality Framework for Early Childhood Education and looks at all aspects of quality, including curriculum. AistearSíolta is the curriculum framework and describes the types of experiences that support children's learning and development in early childhood. What parts of SÍolta and AistearSíolta does the practice guide link to? Firstly, the practice guide is grounded in the principles of the two frameworks, and in particular, on the image of children as confident and competent learners. The guide also relates strongly to 10 standards in SÍolta, and it uses all of AistearSíolta's themes and guidelines. The guide includes a short introduction, curriculum foundations, and 6 interconnected curriculum pillars. Let's look briefly at the foundations and pillars. Curriculum foundations helps practitioners to explore the concept of curriculum. Think about the values and principles that shape the curriculum they use, and to look at the role they play in developing that curriculum. The 6 pillars look at partnerships with parents, the learning environment, interactions, play, planning and assessing, and transitions. Each pillar includes resources to help practitioners reflect on their curriculum work, identify what is working well, and note changes they would like to make. Where's the starting point in the practice guide? Curriculum Foundations is a good place to start. Work here will help practitioners decide which pillar they'd then like to work on. New resources will be added to AistearSíolta.ie over the coming months.
Sorry, we seem to have had a little technical glitch there. So the sound was perfect, but the video kept going back to one little photo. So hopefully you could actually hear that. Like I said, that video is on the homepage on the AistearSíolta practice guide, and it's a really good place to start for people who are unfamiliar with either of the frameworks. If I can just get you to kind of think about, if you can remember from the video, there was one section that described the structure of the practice guide. So along the bottom of the practice guide, the bit that supports everything else that's in the practice guide is curriculum foundations. And we are strongly recommending that when people start to use the practice guide, that is where they start. There are key ideas and key concepts that support the rest of the practice guide, and they are introduced in curriculum foundation, so we recommend that that's where people start. One of those key ideas is that practitioner's role is actually as a curriculum developer. So rather than taking a curriculum off a shelf, that you would use the skills, the qualifications, and your philosophical influences on your practice. You would use those to tailor that to the children in your setting, and use the skills and the interests of the staff that are there. So building on that, this is how we describe curriculum in the AistearSíolta practice guide. So we talk about an emergent and inquiry-based curriculum, and the definition that the practice guide uses is the children and practitioners' interests, questions and experiences are starting points for curriculum planning. So it's kind of similar to actually what Irene was saying earlier on, that what we want is for people to use the children's interests and the staff's strengths to build their curriculum. I'm going to show you a really short video. It's only about 30 seconds, so hopefully this will work. It's a practitioner from the Aistear in Action programme that I talked about earlier on, and she's talking about her experience of moving from a quite traditional curriculum, an off-the-shelf curriculum, to a emergent and inquiry-based curriculum. So hopefully this will work.
We did the Aistear initiative, we were very regimented, and we did a lot of workbooks and worksheets, and because we felt that's what we should do, like in primary school, in a modern fashion. And then when I was talking to parents and staff for physiotherapist came in one day, and they were all about the bones and the muscles and blood, and then they were bringing it outside and they were saying, asking what animals had bones, and then they were looking at insects, wanting to know if they had bones and stuff. So,
Yeah. So it really is a much deeper, more meaningful way of children learning.
Okay, so when we talk about an emergent and inquiry-based curriculum, what we're talking about is a curriculum that involves getting to know the children really well, understanding that they bring a wealth of knowledge with them to the setting, using the children's individual knowledge, skills, abilities, and understanding that that diversity actually makes your curriculum better if you include it, knowing how to support and extend children's learning at a very early age, reviewing the impact of your curriculum, and I suppose trying to reflect on, are we doing the best thing? Is our curriculum actually supporting children to learn and develop? And is what I'm doing actually supporting children to learn and develop? Using AistearS's learning goals and sharing that vision. Sometimes I think something that we're not great at is actually explaining to parents, to new staff, and even to inspectors and mentors what our curriculum is and how we are delivering it. Okay, so working in a reflective way. Reflective practice is at the core of the AistearSíolta practice guide, and there are a number of tools that will help you to do that. Self-evaluation tools. There are lots and lots and lots of examples from Irish practice also on the website under each of the headings. You can develop action plans, and there are action plan templates there for you to use, and then you go ahead and you work on those actions. This reflective cycle, it works really, really well, but only if you have somebody to lead and to guide it, okay? So again, it goes back to the importance of having a leader, pedagogical leadership in your setting. So that's it from me. Like I said, if you want to have more information about the practice guide, you can look at www.aistear.ie, or if you have any ideas or questions or queries, you can email practiceguide@ncca.ie.